Welcome back. This is 535. I'm your host, Susan Davis, and I am joined now by Stephanie Woodward, a disabilities advocate who is spending the day on Capitol Hill advocating for many causes. Stephanie, we were just talking before the camera started rolling. You've got a lot on your plate up here. Talk through what you're advocating for, and specifically who you're talking to.
Absolutely. So our goal is to ensure that wheelchair users have the technology that they need to live our best lives. We can't do that without having the wheelchairs that fit our bodies. So we actually have 3 issues that we're focusing on right now. Our first one is Choices for Increased Mobility Act. That is a bill that would allow an individual who uses a manual wheelchair to pay for the upgrade to a lighter weight wheelchair. So right now a lot of manual wheelchairs are made out of aluminum, but there are lighter options, such as titanium and carbon fiber.
Which sounds expensive.
It's expensive, but right now the rule for Medicare is you're not allowed to pay for the upgrade. They will pay for your chair, but if you want to switch out from an aluminum to like a carbon fiber, they say, well, then pay for the whole chair yourself.
And what does that cost?
That can be a difference of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
A manual wheelchair can be about $7,000, but if you're just paying for that upgrade, it would be less than $2,000. That can be a make or break, particularly for people with disabilities.
So Medicare won't let you pay for the upgrade?
They will not let you.
It's an active policy to prevent a consumer from doing that.
Absolutely. So what we're looking for is just the ability to pay. We're not asking Medicare to pay for the additional upgrade. We're just asking them to make it the policy that we can pay. So this really impacts my life personally. My husband is a manual wheelchair user. So he used to be a professional athlete and he has a racing wheelchair. Racing wheelchairs are really long, they have 3 wheels, and it's carbon fiber. And it's carbon fiber because he had to pay out of pocket for it. Whereas his everyday chair that he uses is not carbon fiber. Even though his racing chair is significantly bigger, it is lighter than the chair he sits in every single day.
Can you give me a sense of what a chair like that might weigh?
A chair that he's sitting in today is around 24 pounds.
Significant.
Carbon fiber is on average 30 to 50% lighter. And while that might not sound like a lot, you have to imagine that my husband is lifting his wheelchair upwards of 18 times a day. To take our kids to the Y, he has to get in the car, get out of the car, take them in, get back in the car, get out of the car to go to work. So it's a lot of in and out of the vehicle, and every single time he has to lift his chair, which can result in a lot of shoulder injuries. And if you're living in your wheelchair every single day of your life, that means that your shoulders can go out when you're 35, 40, and imagine how would he roll around without his shoulders. We can't take time out of our day to have rotator cuff surgery. We have triplets that are less than 2 years old. I don't have time for him to be out of commission.
I don't have time for triplets. That is
right.
That is
and when you have
kids.
triplets, you don't have the money to pay $7,000 for the wheelchair. If this legislation passed, we'd only have to pay $1,500. That's a significant savings when I got all these kids to send to college.
So that's one component of what you're up here for. I think you said there was 3 prongs to it. What's the second?
So there's 2 others. The other one is power standing. So the wheelchair I'm sitting in right now has what we call seat elevation. That's how I'm able to be at an eye level with you right now. So this technology is called eye level, up and down. Whereas if I didn't have this, I would be down here looking up at you. It's straining my neck, all of that. So for years, we asked CMS to approve coverage for both.
CMS being the Centers for Medicaid.
Yes, Centers for Medicare and Medicare Services. So we asked them to approve both the seat elevation and power standing. So power standing is similar, but it allows a wheelchair user to be in an upward standing position, which can be really great for just living life, making pasta in your kitchen.
Does your chair do that?
My chair does not do that because right now it's not covered. So they did approve coverage for seat elevation, but not for power standing. And power standing has other great health benefits besides being able to be up here with everyone else, being able to have that circulation in your body,
blood flow,
being able to put weight on your legs to help with things like transferring, getting dressed. There's so many benefits, but for some reason, CMS has allowed for seat elevation to move forward and be covered, but not power standing. So we're not even asking them to change the rules. We're just asking them to start the process. Let us prove to you that this should be covered. So what we're asking from Congress is to call CMS, encourage them to open this up for conversation so that we can get this process going so that people who are actually needing power standing can get it. Because honestly, having the technology you need to live your life shouldn't be like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be lucky to get what you need.
Especially as technology, I think, is advancing at such a steady pace that it can really improve day-to-day life in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And what has been frustrating is for years people have said, well, it's a nice add-on, but it's not medically necessary. And the argument that it's not medically necessary is, well, it didn't exist before.
Sure.
Just because it doesn't exist before does not mean it's not medically necessary now. Like, how do we progress as a society if we say anything that's new isn't actually required? Like, then I suppose computers aren't necessary because they didn't exist at
Or
one
any other
point in
kind
the
of
past.
health treatments, healthcare
That doesn't
treatments. Yeah.
make sense, right?
So what's the third prong?
The third prong is Medicare Advantage. So within Medicare, there's traditional Medicare and then there's Medicare Advantage. Right now, if my wheelchair breaks and I have Medicare, I can get it fixed without prior authorization from insurance. Prior authorization can take up to 28 days. If I have Medicare Advantage, I have to have prior authorization, which makes no sense because both of them are Medicare. And what's really important with that is about 30% of Medicare Advantage enrollees are people who are Black, Brown, or Asian and living with $24,000 or less annually in comparison to those who are on Medicare. They also report poor health outcomes. So we are taking a population that is already marginalized and having disadvantages and telling them you have to wait longer to get your wheelchair fixed. Not only is that just absolutely ridiculous, it doesn't make sense, but it can have cascading health consequences. If I can't move around in my wheelchair, I'm laying in bed. If I'm laying in bed, I can get a pressure sore. And studies have shown that it can cost Medicare upwards of $100,000 to help one person heal from a pressure sore when they were waiting on prior authorization for less than a $500 fix to their wheelchair.
Do you have a sense, do you know how large a population of people these policies affect?
Significant. In fact, there are quite literally millions. So in California, there's 3.1 million people on Medicare Advantage. In New York, there's, I want to say, 1.8 million. So there's quite literally millions of people who are on Medicare Advantage, and at any time,
I mean specifically that use wheelchairs.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can tell you that when you're the person in the wheelchair waiting, you don't really care how many other people are waiting.
Yeah.
You care that you can't get out of your bed right now because you're waiting on insurance to tell you whether or not you can get your wheelchair fixed. And prior authorization, you have to remember the point of prior authorization is to ensure that it is medically necessary, safe, and cost effective. We already know that the wheelchair is medically necessary because you were prescribed the wheelchair. We already know it's safe for you. And 98% of these that go through prior authorization are approved. So there is no cost savings here. It's not like you're catching a lot of wrongdoing. 98% are approved. So it's just a process that is causing more harm for no good reason.
It's interesting because the problems you're trying to fix that you've outlined, in some ways they sound like just inefficiencies in a system.
Significant.
And does this require, do you need Congress to pass a law, or do you need Congress to tell CMS change your rules?
So for two of these, for the power standing and for the Medicare Advantage, we're just asking Congress to pick up the phone and call CMS and say, what are you doing? This makes no sense, change the rule. It can be a very easy internal fix. We don't have to go through all of these steps that it would take to pass legislation. It can just be a simple fix.
Who are you talking to up here? What is it like? Talk a little bit about your day and who you've been talking to on the Hill and what that process is like.
So we've been talking to a lot of staffers, different members of Congress, bipartisan, to really demonstrate that this is not a partisan issue. Being a person with a disability that needs technology shouldn't matter which party you're in. Like, it matters, can I get out of bed? Can I get the technology I need? If your legs weren't working, should you have to wait for insurance to tell you in 28 days whether or not you can get the care you need to start walking again? Because that's what so many people with wheelchairs are doing. We are waiting for a letter. And I need you to keep in mind, once you get that letter, that doesn't mean your wheelchair is fixed.
Sure.
That just means
you
can move to the next step in the process. So that means people are waiting more than 60 days. We could cut half of that wait time out if we just got rid of prior authorization.
What has the reception been like up here? I mean, these sound like problems that would probably have a lot of support in Congress to fix.
Honestly, we've had really positive meetings for the past day or two. Like, everyone we've met with has seemed to understand the issue and seemed to understand how simple of a fix it should be, and has been really supportive of making those calls. A lot have been asking for sign-on letters that they can really show that support in writing as well. So that leaves us feeling really good, confident, and hopeful that wheelchair users are finally going to be able to get access access to what they need.
It sounds like in some ways you're running more of an awareness campaign versus a lobbying campaign. It doesn't take a lot of persuasion to say, hey, we should make this life easier for Americans in wheelchairs, that they just don't know that the problem even exists.
Sometimes it's that they don't know that the problem exists, and sometimes when you just have a real wheelchair user in front of you saying, this is impacting me, it can hit differently, and they start to see, like, there are real people on the other side of this. This isn't just an issue with invisible people being impacted. Me, my husband, is not being able to lift his own chair in and out of his car. And I can show you pictures of my husband and our kids who are all impacted because of a very silly rule that he can't pay for an upgrade.
Yeah. Who are your champions up here? Do you have members of Congress who are particularly willing to go to bat for this?
I will say that I will always appreciate Senator Duckworth for all of her efforts. As a wheelchair user, she really does understand our issues. She's been an incredible champion, and I can only hope that more wheelchair users become members of Congress, because once you have that kind of awareness, things can move a lot quicker. And I think that other members of Congress respect the issues because they have a colleague that is living it.
Could you share a little bit about your story? How did you become an advocate for this issue, and what brought you into it?
Absolutely. So I've been a wheelchair user my whole life, and I have always been a zealous advocate. When I was in 3rd grade, my music teacher told me I shouldn't be able to use the ramp because I might hurt the other kids, which I thought was interesting, and that's when my dad introduced me to the concept of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I went to law school, and when I was in law school, I got introduced to the power wheelchair industry, and that there's lots of disability rights groups working with manufacturers who are making these chairs, because the manufacturers, honestly, they're not in business if I don't need the chair, so they really do care about the end user. And I appreciate that they're willing to help different end users come here to talk about the issues, because it's very different from the person who sells the wheelchairs talking about it versus the person who is using it. So I got involved in this because it impacts my everyday life, from manual wheelchairs that my husband is using to power wheelchairs that I'm using. Our lives don't function if our wheelchairs don't function.
Are you a lifelong advocate? Do you have a day job, or is this your full-time job?
So my day job is I run an organization called Disability Empower Network. We're an organization run by and for girls and women with disabilities. We help disabled girls become confident to be leaders. We want more disabled girls to grow up into women who are more like Tammy Duckworth. We want more people in this world just leading. We want disabled women in all forms of leadership, because I think the world will be a better place when more women are in charge, and definitely disabled women.
Can I ask you one just big picture question before
Absolutely.
we close? As someone who's worked in the disability rights advocacy movement your whole life, what would you say right now in America the disability experience is like? Do you feel like disability rights are really respected? Do you feel like there is a lot more work to do? I mean, the ADA is obviously a very champion piece of legislation. How far have they come?
I think we've come far, but I like to remind people that the ADA was never a suggestion, and a lot of people still think that disability rights are a nice to have rather than a mandate and a requirement. It is not a nicety for you to respect my rights. It's the law, and the ADA really set a very low bar. I think that we should continue to enforce the ADA, but also expand disability rights. There are people right now living in institutions because our system allows them to be forced into nursing facilities rather than allowing them to get the support they need to live in the community. There's so much work left to be done, and sometimes it's hard to see if you're not living it, but once you become disabled, suddenly those issues are at the forefront.
Stephanie Woodward, it has been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on 535 and sharing your story with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.